Hey everybody, what's going on? Dr. Chad Woolner here with my good friend, Dr. Andrew Wells. And on today's episode of the Laser Light Show, we have with us our special guest, Nikki Reed. We're super excited to chat with her about her experience with Erconia lasers and everything she's got going on in her life right now. So let's get to it. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I used to love going to laser light shows at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. They would put on these amazing light shows with incredible designs synced up to some of my favorite music. From the Beatles to Pink Floyd to Jimi Hendrix and Metallica, they were awesome. Little did I know then that lasers would have such a profound effect in my life decades later. As a chiropractic physician, I have seen firsthand just how powerful laser therapy is at helping patients struggling with a wide range of health problems. As the leader in laser therapy, Erconia has pioneered the field in obtaining 20 of the 23 total FDA clearances for therapeutic application of lasers. On this podcast, we'll explore the science and technology and physiology behind what makes these tools so powerful. Join me as we explore low-level laser therapy. I'm Dr. Chad Woolner, along with my good friend, Dr. Andrew Wells, and welcome to the Laser Light Show. So welcome to the show, everybody, and a huge welcome to Nikki. Nikki, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm genuinely so happy to be here because I'm actually a huge fan. So the roles are reversed right now. I'm here to ask you guys a bunch of questions and talk about, my journey with this so far.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I guess maybe a good jumping off point with that is, how did you get in touch with Erconia lasers? How did that whole process start?
Okay. This started very organically, actually. I had been we can talk about this more in depth in a minute, but I had been sort of navigating this very interesting, mysterious, strange health journey, which I feel is probably not too uncommon for you to hear.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people find lasers in that way, because conventional medicine only teaches us to look inside, one set of parameters. And then when you're on a journey where there's a lot of unanswered questions, you start seeking alternative therapies and having interesting conversations with people that maybe have a more colorful background, if you will. And so that led me here. I have a doctor that I work with who I call he's such a wizard. He's like a jack of all trades. And he discovered the lasers first, and that would be Dr. Ryan. And he was using them on me. And he said, I think a more consistent form of this therapy would be really good for you. And, if it's something you're interested in, maybe, investing in a laser and really investing in the time to do that would be beneficial. So that's what led me here. That's my sort of condensed answer. And then we can break it apart and talk more about it. Yeah.
That's amazing. So Nikki, I know that you're an actress. You've been doing that, but tell us a little bit about some of the other things that you're passionate about, because I also know you're involved in photography and art. So maybe give us a little bit of a whirlwind tour of who you are.
So I call it a previous life. In a previous life, I was an actress, and I spent, a decade and a half. I kind of fell into a career because I co-wrote the first film that I was in, and I was just a kid. It was called 13. And so it kind of catapulted me onto a path that, I don't really think any child can adequately prepare for. I don't think there's a toolbox that comes with a manual. Here's what you do when you're a child and you're sort of thrust into this world. And so part of the evolution, I think, of my relationship with art and understanding art was, finding my way to a form of expression that really resonated with me. And acting is like a tiny sliver of a whole world of art that I discovered actually in my late 20s, early 30s. I had a whole career shift, and I kind of left the only career I'd ever known as an actress. And I kind of really bookended my career with two very much like in the zeitgeist, like pop culture phenomenons, if you will. And I decided that it was time for me to, maybe try to connect with art and connect with culture and impact culture in a different way. And so I launched my business, which at the time we launched with Multi-Purpose Apothecary because I was pregnant with my daughter and I was trying to find a way to, I was Googling things that at the time weren't such like hot, Google searches, like organic, chemical free, how are your clothes grown? Like, how's the cotton grown that we're wearing on our bodies while we're pregnant? And what's in the lotions that we're wearing? And should we be wearing deodorant really? Or is that like a modern man invention that we don't actually need? And just like the things you only really start to Google when you're pregnant because no one tells you to do it before that. And along the way, I discovered that I felt there was a better way to produce products. So that was the launch of my business initially. And we very quickly pivoted into sustainability, which was, I guess, sort of one of the key pillars of the business being, multi-purpose products and apothecary. That is kind of the definition of sustainability in a lot of ways. Less is more. And so we ended up finding ourselves in this beautiful partnership with Dell Technology, using recycled gold that had been extracted from the motherboards of their recycled computers to create fine jewelry. And we moved into that space and things just sort of immediately clicked. We launched fine jewelry at CES, which is like the largest tech convention in the world, interestingly enough. And I'm sure you guys know CES quite well.
Yeah.
And then, the core of the business became sustainable engagement rings. And there went the next 5.5 years of my life, developing this beautiful business in this space that was like all surrounding love, which was so wonderful. And through the business, I had to learn how to wear many hats. And one of those hats was photography, because when you are an entrepreneur, and there's no money but your own money to fund everything that you're doing, you learn how to do everything. You build product pages, you learn how to, create labels and ship and, Excel programs and the back end of websites and coding. And you're also shooting all the photography for the business. And so I invested in myself with my very first camera, and that was 5 years ago. And that was a Leica camera. And I still shoot almost all the product photography for the website and all socials and everything we do, campaigns. And through that, I developed this super crazy, beautiful relationship with photography and with Leica, actually the brand itself. And so now I shoot for Leica, and I have my first exhibition up in Los Angeles, actually, which is such an honor, so exciting. We just had a beautiful Art of Elysium art salon dinner on Saturday celebrating the exhibition, and just really such an honor. Anyway, I'm sorry that was long-winded, but there's a lot of chapters in between that too. And
No, that was great. Yeah, congratulations on that. That's huge. That's wonderful. I've heard of the Leica camera. You'll have to tell us it's different than normal cameras, right? I remember looking at those a while ago, right? There's some sort of unique perspective on those.
I sort of like to describe Leica as being the most iconic camera brand in the world, because you think about war journalists, and you think about if you ever have a vision of somebody on the front lines carrying that beautiful silver and black camera with that red logo on the front, and you're like, oh, that's a Leica. Leicas are the epitome. They are the definitive camera, in my opinion. Listen, all cameras are beautiful, and obviously I'm biased, but Leica is the camera.
Yeah, they make really good lenses. I first learned of Leica they were using them in neurosurgery for the microscopes that they were using for surgery lab. It was really cool. So yeah, these are these hundreds of thousands of dollars of microscopes, and what's the big deal about this microscope? And they have Leica lenses, and they obviously, when you're in neurosurgery and cutting through people's brains, you want to make sure you have a really clear picture of that. And so that was that's actually when I first heard about Leica, and then I didn't realize they actually made incredible cameras as well. They were always out of my price range, for like, and also way above my expertise in terms of photography. I'm like the worst photographer ever. And so like, so I'm like, yeah, I think I need like a Kodak camera or whatever. I started off with it as I was a kid, but yeah, they make really good lenses.
Well, we can talk more about that because I know the camera for you then with Leica. I know it can seem intimidating, but there's actually some really wonderful user-friendly, like a great point and shoot and great. But I love that you have that appreciation for that as well, because when you Google Leica, you're like, wow, there's so many, like, are you sure this is Leica? Because you're reading about microscopes and you're reading about medicine, and it's true. They're involved in, I actually have a Leica phone.
Do you really? Oh, well, that's cool.
I do, yeah. There's so many areas of Leica that are just undiscovered that we need to like reveal for everybody. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So, so when you came in touch with the laser, if you don't mind maybe giving us a little bit more of a picture of what you were using the laser for, how Dr. Manning introduced that to you, how that conversation kind of got started.
So so again, I chalk it up to like this word like mystery illness, because in the world of medicine, you guys know this very clearly, everybody seems to function, in the world of conventional medicine, everyone seems to function in their own lanes, right? So if you talk to, I don't know, an ENT, they're not necessarily understanding what a rheumatologist would understand. And if you're talking to, and what I love about the whole other side of medicine. So I don't like it being like one or the other, but it's like there is Western medicine. And then I feel like there's a whole world that just goes beyond that. And beyond that, to me, is just looking at the whole body as being a connected body. That's it. It's not like one is better than the other. I just feel like in Western medicine, and by the way, my grandfather is like one of the most celebrated doctors in the world, and I have such an appreciation for Western medicine. But really what he, I think, focused on the most, and he wrote papers about this, and like he passed away, gosh, I think it's like 9 or 10 years ago now. And I so wish that he was alive during also just this time that we've just lived through, where I felt like it really takes some critical thinking, some outside of the box thinking, because that's what he was an outside of the box thinker. And I think the best of the best doctors, no matter how you're trained, are just simply outside of the box thinkers. That, and they listen to their patients. And that was something that I read a medical journal that he wrote recently about the importance of listening to your patients above all else, sitting at the bedside of a patient and actually saying, let's talk through what you're feeling. Oh, you don't feel like it's this? Well, then I want to listen to what you do think it could be, because at the end of the day, we're all such intuitive beings, but we've been totally trained to disconnect from our bodies and experience health, wellness, medicine in this sort of whole interconnected way. So anyway, I was experiencing very strange symptoms that wouldn't go away, from ongoing sinus infections to a sudden spike in my ANAs that no one could figure out. And I'm an incredibly healthy person, right? And so there were just these things that kept popping up that were actually, Dr. Ryan was the first person to say, I was like, I don't know that it's a big deal that I have a spike in my ANAs. And Dr. Ryan was like, no, it actually is. Like, I actually want to look into that, because the body doesn't do that unless there's something it's trying to tell you. And that's another thing I've learned on this journey the last couple of, it's been 3 years now of this health journey, is that the body knocks on your door until you start to listen, right? So for some people, it comes in the form of like pain. They just have unexplainable pain. I didn't have that, but I'm just saying these are stories that I hear. And that pain might not even be necessarily connected to the root cause of the problem, but it knocks. And the body's like, hey, are you going to listen? And we ignore it because we have busy lives and we're working these crazy jobs, and we all are buried in our technology, and we have 9,000 texts we haven't responded to. And so when we're in bed at night, why we're not going to sit there and do like castor oil packs and magnesium baths because we've probably got 10,000 texts to reply to. And when we wake up in the morning, we're not going to meditate for the first 10 minutes of the day and get nice red light in our eyes. We're going to actually just respond to the 2,000 emails that we're probably behind on. And this is the hamster wheel of life that we've gotten ourselves into. And amazingly, I'm not saying this is the cure to anything, and I'm not a doctor and I can't, diagnose or treat or anything, but I will tell you that nature has this really interesting way of like resetting us, and at the very least, getting us to understand what's actually going on in our bodies, even intuitively, because it sets you back into the rhythm of nature, which is a slower pace. When we're moving so quickly, we're not paying attention. So my body was knocking, right? It was like, hey, you should maybe look at this. And I wasn't looking. And hey, there's maybe a little bit of this. And I'm like, that's probably normal. And I'm just so healthy, right? There's just no way there's something wrong. That's what I just kept telling myself, like so many people. And then I noticed, and I do keep a lot of, obviously, just for the sake of like my daughter being her own person. And, even though I'm her parent, and of course parents like to speak for their kids, I think of her as like her own being, and maybe in 10 years she doesn't want her story, or her private life to be out there. So I don't talk about her too much, but I'll just say that there were similarities that were happening between my daughter and I. And it's funny, as a parent, you might not pay attention to yourself, but when something is going on with your child, you're like, oh, now I'm going to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right. Again, going back to like pregnancy and everything in the very beginning of this, and why I launched my business. So we pay attention when we're parents. And so I started going down like the deep rabbit hole with her and understanding the brain body connection. Why is the brain, having these symptoms if the body's not having symptoms, and vice versa? And the body does a really good job of hiding things for all of us. It can store things, whether those things are infections or pathogens or bacteria or viruses, or things can lie dormant. And you think about things like Lyme disease and how long they can lie dormant in your body, or why do some things affect some people and not, others? And that's like the whole fascinating world of medicine. Is what is it about our composition, our body composition, that makes us all so unique and have different reactions to things? So for my daughter, I was noticing a lot of stuff that was likely, neuroinflammatory, and likely a connection happening there. And kids have they have way less layers than we do as adults. As adults, we've buried like 10 or 15 or 20 years of all the bad shit we've put in our bodies and things. And then it like pops up sometime in your 30s or 40s. Hi, remember what you were doing when you were 15 and like only drank, diet sodas and nuggets and like all the things you could smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Hi, we're here, whatever it was. But kids just have way less layers. And so it's so amazing to see how they respond to treatment and how they, okay, sorry. Your original question was about the journey with the lasers. So,
just so you know, you're like totally preaching to the choir and or our audience. These are the type of conversations that we have. Like we have a training program for practitioners that help them. And we don't talk a whole lot about magic supplements or all these different complex tests or anything like that. There's a time and a place for those things. But so much of what you literally just said is the type of conversation that we have with practitioners. And so just know, like what you're saying, you're right on par with what we preach. What were you going to say, Andrew?
Yeah. As you were talking the last 5 minutes, Nikki, I was thinking, my gosh, like you'd be an amazing doctor. If you go back to like what the word doctor means in Latin, it means a teacher. And part of being a teacher is curiosity and understanding where things come from, how the body works, how the body operates in the environment that we're around. And as you're explaining what you've been through and what you've discovered over the years, it got me thinking. Like, so Dr. Woolner mentioned we work with other healthcare practitioners on the clinical side, but also on the business management side. And one of the trickiest things for us to do as practitioners is, how do you communicate these things to patients? And I want to take the last 5 minutes of what you just talked about and make that into a script. And so this is what you should say to your patients, because this is it. Number one, it's true.
Yeah.
And number two, it's a great starting point for all the things you mentioned, from environment to the brain-body connection, to the fact that we're not these little some of these individual parts, which is the way conventional healthcare looks at it. All the things that you just said is like the greatest. It's a really good way to have conversations and to start conversations with patients, and also get them to realize that it's not the doctor who is in control of your health. It's you in control of your health. And when from a patient to think about that, and for just people individually to think about that, that puts a lot of the control and the power in your hands, and you can really, dictate, how you're going to operate your body, and in turn, your body will thank you for that. I like the analogy of, hey, your body is knocking. It's a great sort of non-threatening way and unlabeling way to say, hey, this is like, you're not a symptom. It's just your body telling you, like, we need to pay attention to something specifically. And so you did a really good job explaining that. And I'm just curious with Dr. Manning, like, some of this I'm sure is like things that you've kind of discovered. Is any of this like the way that you think about health and your body and your daughter's body? Is any of that sort of a reflection of the work that you've done with Dr. Manning?
I think the best way to answer that is to say that I gravitate towards like-minded people, and I feel he does too. I think that I met him. I think if I can attribute that to anyone, it would probably be my grandfather, just because I feel like in some crazy spiritual way, he's like living through me. And I know that might sound, maybe I just took a sharp left turn and you're like, okay, now
not at all. No, you're good.
But I just feel like I'm at the point now with my understanding of health and wellness, where like if I sit down with someone and they don't come with that curiosity that you just said, I don't know what kind of conversation there is to be had anymore. One of my favorite things, even my daughter's pediatrician says this all the time. He's like, I learn as much from medical books as I do from the mothers. And I love that. I love that because yes, science is amazing. Yes, medicine is amazing. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. But what's also unbelievable is coupling that with the, hundreds of thousands of years and beyond of wisdom that comes from, just life and experience. And maybe we didn't have the tools that were sharp enough to see those things, or, the lenses or the magnifying glasses or whatever, but we know we have that intuition. And sometimes what medicine does is it separates us from that. But with the right practitioners, it actually combines those things, And what you just said is so special about, like, you opened that sentence with, the word teacher, and then you very quickly pivoted into the best teachers are curious. And I actually said that the other day. I said the best educators come with curiosity. I was giving a speech for something, and I love that you just said that too, because most people think that being a teacher means talking at people and not listening to people.
Right. It's what I was going to say. It's really interesting. I've heard from numerous people, numerous doctors, that say that one of the kind of cardinal or key rules of determining whether or not you're dealing with a good doctor or a doctor that you should probably avoid is how they treat the mothers, right? We'll say pediatrician, right? That if you quickly dismiss the mother's reports and the history and what they share with you, you're dismissing a tremendous amount of valuable clinical information. And again, without being too ethereal here, I think we would be amiss to discount what people would call a mother's intuition, right? There's something very real and very palpable to that. And I think that the best doctors hone into that, lean into that, and definitely incorporate that. Don't dismiss that. And unfortunately, some doctors are very dismissive of that. What would you know? You're not a doctor, whereas what you're saying is, no, it's the exact opposite. You should be honing in on that and really tuning into that.
What I love about Dr. Ryan, aka Dr. Manning, is that he looks at the body as an entire connected being. And so even though he technically is trained and specialized in one field, right? He's got that's what his area is. He has such a wealth of knowledge about everything in between. And I just wish that doctors were trained. And if they aren't trained, that they retain an element of sort of yearning for that knowledge still, to understand all the things in between. I got sent down every rabbit hole from, again, of course, ENTs to rheumatologists to looking at my blood to okay, where do we begin? Because we can't figure it out. Because it's interesting, one set of panels, I've got a doctor going, you're 100% perfect. And then another set of panels, I've got a doctor going, did they not look at X, Y, and Z and all these things in between? And, yes, classic numbers could be if you fall between 10 and 14, you're considered normal, but no one's looking at the fact that you're a 30, at the time I was a 32-year-old woman. And so if you're a 10.4 on the charts, you shouldn't be a 10.4 on a chart of 10 to 14 at your age for your, and so you start piecing it together this very interesting puzzle of so maybe your liver's working too hard. And why would your liver be working so hard if, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, you don't, here's how you eat, you're not putting extra stress on this. So something is happening that's stressing this out. Let's bounce over here and look at this now. And not many doctors have the ability to look beyond their one field. And so it creates this crazy limitation where they're oh, we have to send you off to the next person. But if there isn't this giant cohesive network of people, if you're just being referred out to other people that are not connected, that's where the disconnect lies. Whereas my dream would be to see one global center of doctors that are constantly in communication with each other and on the same page and practicing in a similar way, so that if they have a patient that's having a problem with this, they can bounce it off of someone that they already feel they have that dialogue with. And, I was just bounced all over the place. And I'm going to go as far as to say something really crazy controversial as someone who's been in a very frustrating, almost, financially crippling is definitely a great way to describe what happens, in the world of alternative medicine. Unfortunately, it can be, because there isn't a support system for that, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you go down years of this rabbit hole of trying to figure things out and seeking out your own way, you have to get to a place where you decide that your illness can actually be looked at as a gift. And I know that sounds so weird and controversial, but I'm going to say that in a way I really feel like the body tells you things before there's a real problem. And that's what I mean by the gift, if we're willing to listen. I had a girlfriend call me the other day, and she found out that she has thyroid cancer. And she's had a pain in her neck, and that pain, of course, and you know what I'm about to say, the pain is actually completely unrelated to the thyroid cancer, right? According to her team and her doctors. I'm not a doctor, but there isn't actually pain associated with thyroid cancer, so I'm told. And she's had this pain for 4 years, and the thyroid cancer is so small, actually, that it's completely undetectable except by this very specific kind of ultrasound. But it's because of that pain, that knocking, if you will, on the door, that she continued to say, I'm going to seek alternative, therapies or forms of what is going on. And I had a very similar thing happen to me. So it gave me chills all over my body. The only reason I started looking into my health to begin with was because I had this weird pain, and actually, come full circle, it was Dr. Manning that I was seeing for this pain, funny enough. So here we go. I had this weird pain that was underneath my right ear on the right side of my body, up into this joint right here, where if I turned my head, I would get this shooting nerve pain into my inner ear canal, and it would start throbbing down into my throat and down into the side of my body. And I was I just want to make sure that there's not a tumor or something weird growing in there. And I saw every doctor under the sun, and everybody, they sent me down to like, do you have, Elios downloads? Do you have, which I obviously don't, I'm not bendy at all. I've got, so they just send you everywhere to feel like they've crossed every T, dot every I. And no one would acknowledge that pain was real. And, Dr. Ryan was with me all the time and pulling and stretching and moving and cracking. And like, maybe we have to move this joint off of this joint, but what is the root cause of this pain? And finally, I discovered that the root cause of that particular pain was because of this insane amount of grinding of my teeth that I was doing, right? And so, of course, when you find out you're grinding your teeth, they want to send you to, every, dental, ortho, everything under the sun to figure out how to reshape your jaw and expand your jaw and change your teeth and put in prosthetic this and pull this tooth. And you must have 4, root canals that need to happen. And so I got thrown into there and I was like, oh goodness, I'm definitely not gonna, have multiple root canals before I get 10 opinions on that, first of all.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, why am I grinding my teeth? It's not just stress. I mean, yes, life is stressful and I have multiple jobs and a tiny person and, but what is really the root cause why I'm grinding my teeth? And I had been exposed environmentally to something that was completely hidden in my body, like completely undetectable. And grinding your teeth is a symptom. It's not the root cause of the problem. It's a symptom of what the problem is. So you start like chipping away and starting to understand. And then that was the beginning of me starting to really understand what was going on. And, of course you don't have like a spike in your ANAs for nothing. And it's, I guess it's not just a spike. It's been a sustained spike now for years when there's nothing going on. And so you look further and further. And funny, as someone who had had my blood work done for so many years by so many different doctors, no one ever checks for positive ANAs in young people. It's not part of routine panels ever. So I don't know how long that was going on, but anyway, that's the knock, right? And my girlfriend who had that happen with the pain in her neck, it's completely unrelated to the cancer she ended up discovering. So if we can just slow down for a sec and step back and like tune into our bodies, usually our body will say, hey, something's going on, just you gotta find what it is. Yes, sorry, I talked again for 10 minutes.
No.
Someone needs to put a little buzzer like, bam, stop talking.
No. That was great. I was going to say I can appreciate from a very personal standpoint that my wife had thyroid cancer. My wife has dealt with a lot of chronic health issues over the years. In fact, when we were first married, first few years of marriage, we went through infertility. And ultimately that wound up to us adopting all of our children. So we now have 3 children. So when you talk about this idea of like these things being ultimately a blessing, you can look at it from either that kind of very kind of negative lens, or you can look at it through kind of what comes about as a result of it. The other thing too, with my wife's health issues is that ultimately that to a large extent has led to, in many ways, what we have developed to be able to help practitioners and patients alike in terms of working with them. And so completely appreciate kind of that perspective for sure, because I've experienced that. So I'm curious how the lasers fit into this whole scenario here. What did Dr. Manning start doing with you in terms of how have you started using lasers? What's been some of the results that you've seen as a result of using that?
So I'm a new laser user.
Okay.
So new as in, just in the last couple of months, really. And so I always like to I've got a 6-month rule for anything in the health space. I think it takes us a long time to get to where we are. And there's no miracle cures or like you snap your fingers and things just fall back into place. It's a journey that starts with acknowledgement and then moves into treatment. And then the body has to also, I think, release back into saying, I'm ready to get well, especially when you've dealt with chronic illness. And, there's like been so many no's along the way and roadblocks. I think the body has to be able to say, okay, I'm ready now to relax enough to get well. So there are things I immediately see with the laser. And then there are things that I think take time to just discover. Immediate things that I definitely see with like the superficial wound healing, rashes, things like that. I see an immediate response from lasers, from lasering, I mean. And Dr. Ryan has like even more hardcore lasers that I want to get my hands on at some point. I have, I have a great laser, but he has like the mothership lasers. So I still see him for my lasers too, at the same time. But I use so this is the laser that I have. I don't know if this is the laser you guys have or use. And so I can use this. I have a stand now, which has been so helpful because sometimes I just feel like someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but just having like consistency and having the stand up has made it so nice and user friendly to just be able to sit and like read a book for a second and not feel like you have to devote time to just holding your laser, but just like tune out for a minute, and then laser becomes a part of your therapy as opposed to I have to sit here and devote 10 minutes of time to this. So all the superficial things I see immediately, and I do also feel like I see some great impact on my immune system, but again I see that as like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's a whole like combo process because you have to take control of the decisions that you make on a daily basis, whether it's through how you're eating, how you're exercising, the thoughts you're putting into your brain, like what you're digesting emotionally, physically every day, coupled with, your lasers and your diet and your time away from blue light. And like, you have to do everything at once, right? It's like the analogy of like telling, a smoker to take their vitamins, right? You have to like, you can't, and lasers to me are all about energy and light. And so you want to keep yourself in a space of light. I wish I could tell you that like I lasered my body once and then I snapped my fingers and all of my blood work came back perfect. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you that in the last 6 months, my labs have improved.
That's fantastic.
And my immune system, I see a big difference. And anytime my daughter gets sick, this is a part of our routine as well. And I feel very energetically encouraged by this.
It's interesting that you pointed out that you give things like the 6-month rule. I think it's what you said. Or 6 months to kind of implement something into your protocols and your systems to see if it works and what effect it has on your body. And it's interesting you say that because I say that a lot to other healthcare providers as well. When they're asking about specific protocols or like functional medicine protocols, and they'll say, well, what does the protocol look like? And they want to know how long it should be. And we always come back to like that 6-month mark seems to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I talk a lot about 6 months. And this is for what I would say a lot of very common chronic health issues. So if you're looking at things like digestive issues, hormone imbalances, fatigue, anxiety, depression, a lot of these things will, this is also kind of on the heels of what you're talking about, that your body is very resilient, and oftentimes you can damage the heck out of your body. And it may take years, if not decades, for the knock to come. And then the knock comes, and then all of a sudden we magically expect that all these, if we just eat one salad or like go for a walk or meditate once, then that's going to reverse all the, decades of damage we've done to our body. But realistically, if you think about it, it takes time, right? And it takes also a comprehensive approach. So it's not just nutrition. It's not just a laser. It's not just your thoughts. It's not just the bookends of your day and your habits that you're implementing. It's a combination of those things times time. And so there's some patience that's involved with that too. And there's this, kind of, well, I want immediate results now. I want this to go away now. But it doesn't always work that way. And I think sometimes we tend to skip over things that take time because we're impatient and we just want the thing to go away. And that's, I think that's a challenge a lot of our patients have and a lot of our practitioners have when they want to see really good results with their patients. They're missing the time aspect of it. And I think 6 months is actually a really good, almost like a starting point. Like after 6 months, we're going to know, are we on the right track here, or are we missing something? Is there something we should remove or something that we should add? And so I think that's interesting. Another reason why you'd be a really good doctor, Nikki.
Yeah. One of the most common things that we tell patients and practitioners alike is the healing equation is doing the right things in the right order for the right amount of time. That's the healing equation. That's how you do it. Right things, right order, right amount of time. That's how the body heals. So,
and then I would just add to that, like not knowing what the right amount of time is, like being open to, that's an X factor, right? That we just don't have the answer to. And that's the most frustrating part of the whole lesson, I think, is like, when, you know, we live in a society where we're so used to quick fixes, I think, and we don't really let things have a process. Even with medicine, which again, I'm like a huge fan of, I love Western and conventional medicine too. I do. I have a big appreciation for it. I work with a company called Genexa, for example, which is the first clean medicine company on the planet. I work, and that's, Genexa is wonderful. It's the same active ingredients in your standard OTC meds, but without all the artificial chemicals and preservatives and all the things that are just unnecessary, right? So isn't there a way to do both? Like, can't we have a fever reducer and also use like organic blueberry syrup as our sweetener? Like, why can't we do both at the same time is my goal always. And that's just such a great example, even with fever reducers, like time, right? We're taught, okay, if we just give this medicine, then is the problem gone? Or is it just sort of giving us a bit of reprieve? And that's how I try to look at medicine, is like, it's a moment to breathe, to look at the actual problem, because the truth is, in medicine, there are no quick fixes. You can't even look at a surgery as a quick fix because there's still a healing process, and that's the quickest fix of all, is a surgery, and there's still time to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. My question for you is, now that you've got kind of some of these answers that were previously unanswered, what do you foresee? And this is funny. This is a funny question coming on the heels of you saying, we don't know, right? So we're going to ask you to play crystal ball here. What do you foresee in the next 5-10 years with regard to your journey? And this could be a more holistic question, not just in terms of health, but also clearly you've got a lot of really cool things happening right now in your life that you're passionate about, your photography, your art. What are the things that you see happening that are really exciting to you over the next 5-10 years? And obviously your family as well.
So many, let me not answer that in 20 whole minutes. So in terms of health, we'll just say there, I feel really good about this. And I think it's only when I shifted my mindset to understanding that illness is a gift to actually get you to open the door, that I was like, oh, look at what I've learned in the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I'm so like flattered that you keep saying I should be a doctor, because truly, like, I've found a whole area of passion, undiscovered passion in my life. And I feel like even just inspiring through curiosity, like not teaching people, because what do I know to teach, but just, friends call me to talk about medical things. And I'm like, hey, have you read this book? Or have you tried looking at this? Or just being able to share that kind of information. I'll stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning reading medical journals. I read everything all the way through. What a gift that is, to actually see life through a different lens at this stage. What a gift to be a parent and also now have some of that knowledge and understanding. So in the next 5-10 years of health, I feel really good about it. I actually think that this is, in some weird way, some like crazy, meant to be journey that's going to lead to something bigger and better and greater in that respect. I have to think that, right? Otherwise you're just frustrated and, feeling discouraged. And it is nice, I have to say, to see like the little wins, right? The fact that 3 years ago I had, multiple dentists. I think I said 10 earlier, but I was kind of joking. I think I got 6 opinions is the number that I had. I had probably 5 CT scans on my jaw. I probably had, I definitely had at least 1, if not 2 MRIs, multiple x-rays looking at my body, my lungs. That's just one area of health. I'm just saying I had at least, a handful of dentists confirming like, you have all these broken teeth, we need to pull all these teeth. So then I started looking into, what does it look like to get an implant and root canals, and what chemicals am I putting in my mouth, and are there like biodentists, like bioidentical materials I can use? And it just put you down this whole path. And guess what, guys? 3 opinions later, I asked to get my own CT scan back, and I don't know how to read a CT, but I was like, can I just have my scan so I can show it to other doctors? And I start showing it, and they're like, I don't see a crack in that tooth that they want to pull. I don't see a thing. So here we are, like 3.5 years later. I actually don't have a single bit of pain in any of these teeth. I ended up having bruised nerves, and multiple dentists wanted to pull all these teeth on the right side of my mouth, which could have caused a whole host of other health problems later on down the line when you start messing with the jaw, when it doesn't need to happen. And that was all because I was sitting there going, you know what, I'm going to trust my intuition and keep asking and keep looking and here I am. It's completely healed. I mean, I have 0 pain in my teeth and my jaw. I have no cracks in my teeth, nothing. That's one tiny win, right? But you're like, oh, I feel really good about that win. The wins are important, the little wins. And then, in terms of like, life and career and all those things, it's really scary to leave the only career you've ever known, for sure, especially as a woman. So I don't know how many of your listeners are women, but the best advice I can give on that is, you have to believe in the thing you want to do. We can actually like compare that to, health as well, but you have to believe in yourself and the thing you want to do, whatever that dream is, whatever that business is you want to start, whatever that goal is that you have. There might be some silly misconception that I can just clear up in 5 seconds that like, oh, you were an actress, so you could like self-fund everything and everything was easy and blah, blah, blah. Let me just say right now, whatever numbers you look up on Wikipedia that like we made for movies, that's all a lie. None of that's real. Wikipedia says I'm worth X amount of dollars. I wish I was Wikipedia. I wish that were true. None of that's real. So I'll just tell you, I work my butt off. I have 4 jobs and companies that I work on to be able to support my dream of starting my business. So I work multiple jobs to be able to reinvest into my own business. And I'm the only investor in my business. So it hasn't been easy. It's really hard, actually. But if you believe in it, there will be a way. That kind of like belief in yourself inspires other people to see that. And if you believe in your mission, there will be a way. And you're also never too old to make that transition or start that. I was so scared, like approaching 30, and here I am, I'm 34, going, oh my gosh, I changed careers. And then I'm listening to you say, hey, maybe, you should be a doctor. And literally, I'm not going to lie, I've got like a little spark in my brain going, maybe I do want to go to medical school. Maybe it's not too late actually to like transition into something else as well. Life is this beautiful opportunity to continue to follow our areas of passion if we listen to them.
I think, I think you've shared some pretty insightful, very, very powerful nuggets for people to consider here. I've been super impressed. What were you going to say, Andrew?
I really want, most of the listeners on this podcast are healthcare providers, and I really want them to think about what you just said, because that really is the starting point for helping more people, helping more patients. We have a lot of practitioners who want to know, well, how do you, especially in the alternative health space, well, how do you actually run a business doing that? Right? You just talked about like, it's not all rosy. We all have tons of money to play with, and we can run successful businesses and have a good life outside of that. It can be really challenging. oftentimes. But the thing that you hit the nail on the head is when you start with a why, a powerful enough why that you really believe in, then everything happens at the right time and the right, for the right reasons after that. Yeah. And I think that was a really wise statement that you made. And I think of all the things we talked about, I really want docs to think about that because that's important.
Yeah. Me too. And I feel like we don't even have to convince. I mean, if they're showing up to listen to this podcast, then obviously they're here for a reason. But just to, piggyback on that, what we need now more than anything is healthcare providers that are asking why. That's what I would say. And, we have come so far in modern medicine and we've learned so much, which is just, gosh, what a miracle and such a testament to how intelligent human beings are. But we've also lost our way quite a bit. And there are some huge fundamental flaws in our healthcare system, in how we treat people and how we treat patients and how we think about medicine, in the fear that's been instilled to simply ask questions. And gosh, that's what I loved so much about the reading that I've been doing about my grandfather's work, is that so he started something called oh my gosh, my dad is going to be so mad that I'm about to butcher this, but it's the bioethics. I need to call my dad so I don't ruin this. Started a debate that was known certainly all across this city, this state, this country, and then globally, because he knew doctors around the world. But it was a debate where he encouraged doctors to sit across from each other and debate different issues. And he became, very well known for it. It actually continues to this day, which is so cool. Every time I think about that, I think, imagine the conversations that can come up if doctors are allowed to openly disagree and encouraged to openly disagree, actually, on purpose, with the intention of possibly opening up a couple of questions and doors in areas that maybe we've been told we can't discuss for whatever reason. I don't know, it doesn't follow a textbook, or it wasn't part of your training, or it wasn't part of, but imagine what comes from debate. And I just have been thinking about, gosh, so much since I've been on this journey the last couple of years with my health, about the importance of that. So maybe, even though I know you have, of course, a probably very, open-minded, awesome audience listening to this, but maybe we can make that continue elsewhere,
One of the most insightful points that I've heard made by a Catholic priest, he came and spoke at a completely different denomination school. And he said, about this whole idea of disagreement, he said, what I see today isn't that we need to disagree less, it's that we need to disagree better. And I thought that was such a powerful point. And I, to your point, exactly that isn't that the whole entire premise behind the scientific process is, and that's something over the past 2-3 years. Over the past 2 to 3 years. That's just something that we have seen completely go out the window, is any room for disagreement. And that's been such an unfortunate, because at the end of the day, the greatest thing that gets lost in that is truth, And so two books that keep coming to mind through everything you're saying. I keep hearing these 2 books. The first one is called The Rabbit Effect. Have you heard of that book before?
No, but I'm going to write it down right now.
The Rabbit Effect talks about in detail years. Yeah, this was back in the 70s or 80s. They were doing research on rabbits, and there was this research assistant that no matter where she went, the rabbits in her group got better outcomes. And they tried to account for all the different variables and control these different variables. And ultimately what they found was this lab assistant, they finally started kind of observing what she was doing, and she was just being compassionate with these rabbits. She was kind to them, and she would speak to them, and she would just be compassionate, and they got better outcomes. And that's what and so basically the implications of it, we did a whole podcast on this, a year or two ago, is the implications of, I mean, if that has an impact on rabbits, think about human beings, for crying out loud, and
compassion?
Just through compassion, and then second is the other book is a book called Compassionomics, where they're basically talking about how what your grandfather championed back in the day is like what research is now showing, and evidence is now showing is the path forward, that we're going to see a dramatic impact on improvement of delivery of healthcare costs, and all the social implications, just through having a greater degree of the human element involved in it. So everything basically you've been preaching is exactly what they're saying now is the path forward, so very, very profound.
Thank you. Yeah, what you just said is like such a nice button on all of this too, because that is a very important element of all healing and all medicine and all everything is compassion.
Yeah. And that is the thing. In all honesty, the thing that I've been super grateful for is the folks at Erconia and all of their experts that we've had the privilege of getting to chat with on this podcast, and guests like you. That's a common thread that has been woven through this. It's very clear that you're super passionate about what you're doing, passionate about this kind of health journey, and so many others as well. And so you're definitely in the right environment here, because you're preaching to an audience that sincerely cares about this message. And so we're super grateful, and we're grateful for the folks at Erconia and all the good work that they're doing with their lasers. Anything you want to add, Andrew?
Yeah, Nikki, when you open your clinic, just let us know so we can refer patients to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we talk offline after this?
Yeah, I have a feeling that might happen.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, you know what? It actually, who knows? Who knows? It's really an area of passion for me. That's what I've learned from this. And I feel so inspired actually by some of the amazing doctors that I've had the honor and privilege of working with throughout this. It's been so, I can't even explain. It makes you super emotional when you think about like, just, I don't know, the difference it makes when there's a doctor who gets it, who's like there and willing to show up and willing to go home and think about their patients and think about, maybe learning a little something new because their patient doesn't fit into the conventional mold of what's going on, or fit into like, that's that level of compassion that I think makes a good doctor a great doctor. Is like, they can't just not discover more. They have to, And then I think about my grandfather, who's still in his 90s, was going into the hospital multiple days a week. And he was so valuable to that hospital that they actually sent a driver in the end and brought him in because he donated his time until the end, multiple days a week. And that's like the kind of special human being that you're like, you're here because you want to change humanity,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, Nikki, this has been incredible, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. I would say in closing, for me, I keep thinking this is an episode I want to make sure all of our practitioners listen to, because I feel like there is tremendous wisdom that they can glean and inspiration for them. Because I never met your grandfather, but he sounds like an incredible human being. He sounds like a very inspirational person, and ultimately kind of the type of doctor we should all strive to be like, one way or another. So thank you. Thanks for sharing it with us. So we appreciate you guys taking time to listen to this episode. And again, we appreciate Nikki taking time out of her schedule, sharing her story, her experience, her wisdom with us. It's been a pleasure. And we look forward to sharing with you guys more on the next episode. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the Laser Light Show. Be sure to subscribe and give us a review. If you're interested in learning more about Erconia lasers, just head on over to erconia.com. There you'll find a ton of useful resources, including research, news, and links to upcoming live events, as well as Erconia's e-community, where you can access for free additional resources, including advanced training and business tools. Again, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.